It's just that if you are trying to kind of have this complete all-round game, you do mentally kind of have to separate, well, this isn't tennis. This is pickleball. Let me figure out and understand how pickleball works, and then I can add that stuff in later. The kids can go do something else, and I get to go play pickleball with my friends. So I think the adults like having it for themselves, but ultimately I think, for the sport to really grow to the next level and get there, I think the kids have to start playing.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 42nd episode of the 00 Start podcast, brought to you by JustPaddles. Today, special guest, Jessie Irvine. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have watched you play for years, and it's such a pleasure to have you on here just to chat through all your stuff. I can't wait to talk with you, but thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Yeah. No, thank you for having me. I haven't done a lot of these, so we'll see how this one goes,
Well, that's good. I mean, yeah. Something tells me with all your performances, your post-game interviews, your wins, you are going to be just fine at this.
I try. I try. I like to have a good time with it. I try to have fun with it, just be myself, and usually it works out pretty well.
And it's kind of fun because it's a lot of times us athletes are like, you see an athlete on the court, and that athlete might be like super serious, or like, man, does he talk, or is he like that all the time? And then you listen to that person talk on a podcast or just after, you're like, holy smokes, like that person is totally different than what I expected.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the best athletes do a really good job of that, like compartmentalizing and kind of, when you step onto the court or on the field or whatever it is you're doing as a professional athlete, you become your athlete, you become, what you need to do to perform at your best. And then when you step off the court, it's you're done and that's it. And you kind of put that to the side, you put that in a box, somewhere else, and then you become a different person. And I think it's really good to be able to kind of compartmentalize and be able to do that. And I think the best athletes can. So yeah, that's something that I try to do as well. On and off the court, whatever happens on the court stays on the court, whatever happens off the court stays off the court. And I feel like I perform my best when I don't mix the two.
That was the coolest thing I've ever heard in my life. I love that. And we haven't even started yet.
We're starting strong.
We're starting very strong, but I want to talk about that for a second. We haven't even started I want to talk about like how you got your start into the game and everything, because everybody's story is so unique. But before we get there, like what you mentioned there is like, and I think people struggle with that, like fans, right? People really struggle like, oh, and I'm not saying you, but she's so mean, or she's so serious. She doesn't have, it's like, well, but at the same time, what you have to do is take yourself out of who you are as a pickleball player, because you might have fun and play 5 days a week for exercise. And, you don't care if you win or lose. This person is playing for their livelihood. This is their job. This is what they do. They're trying to not only make money at this event, but, try to gain sponsors, blah, 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 blah. Keep going down the list of all the things that you do when you're playing professionally. But that's hard for people to separate. Like, no, I know that you have fun and you do this on Saturday mornings and Wednesdays and everything. And that's amazing. I love it. We couldn't be here without all those people, but remember, like, someone loses first round and you exit without any money. That's your weekend a lot of times. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard for people to separate that.
Yeah. And I think it's because like the beauty of pickleball is that it's probably one of the only sports we have right now where everyone can play. And that's, that's the beauty of it. Everyone can kind of just pick up, go out there and play. They can compete. They can be competitive. So I think it's really hard at a certain point to understand it's also a professional sport. Whereas all the other professional sports like football and basketball, people can't play. So when they see it, they know, okay, well, they're playing professional sport. I can't do that. So I think it's an easier like disconnect for them to like see the pros and see the athletes and be like, okay, that's what they do. And I think for pickleball, it's still tough because everybody can play. I think that's also why it's hard, like viewership wise, like, that's always a discussion. Like, how do we get more people to watch pickleball? And like, it's a good problem to have because the reason they're not watching is because they're playing. So where they can't play the other sports, it's much harder on their body and it's just harder, to actually go and play football or basketball at that high of a level. So I think, for me personally, when I step on the court and I'm as serious as I am, it's not even necessarily for the money or for the winning aspect. It's more of that's just what I need to do to play well. I need to focus really hard. I find like if I'm not focused and I kind of, my mind wanders, I start missing the ball. And it's hard probably to believe because I do play at a professional level. But for me, like, I realize if I'm not focused and I'm not intense, I don't play as well. I don't follow game plans. I don't follow the strategy. So I really kind of have to lock in for myself and kind of be that focused in order to perform well. And yeah, like I think that's, you know, everybody's a little different. You know, there's people out there that need to be relaxed to play better. There's people out there that really have to, you know, kind of lock in and focus. And every athlete does it differently. But at the end of the day, we're all just trying to perform and play our best. And we all have different ways of getting there. And also for me too, it's like like, it's not pressure, but it's like, for me, my main events are doubles and mixed doubles, which means I'm not playing by myself and I'm not just playing for myself. I also have a partner, and even more so than for me, because I just like playing pickleball because it's fun and I enjoy it. And, you know, for me, it's like a second career. So I'm just out there having a great time being active. So it's more of, I want to play well for my partner. You know, I
Sure.
want my partner to do well. So there's that. I put a little bit of pressure on myself where it's like, okay, Jesse, you really have to focus here. Like you have to like be in it because you don't want to let your partner down. And that's usually what goes through my mind more than anything else, is I just don't want to let my partner down.
Well, that's a good partner to have. That's like that's the best partner to have because you know they're a good teammate, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
want the
No,
team to
I'm
succeed.
out there and I want my partner to like succeed and win and do well. And it's so funny, like I even like when I play, like that's kind of the way I play my game, is like I like setting up my partner for success. Like there's so many times where I hit a shot and I'm thinking, okay, if I hit it here and I do this, it'll set up my partner to have a really good put away shot. And that's kind of where my mind goes. So it's just like, that's just for me, that's how I play, is like I just want to do well for my partner.
I love that. That's cool. I think, and I'm sure all your partners that you play with appreciate that and see that in you, which is
Yeah,
really cool. But
yeah.
I took this into left field immediately. That's my
I know.
fault.
It's
But if we go
okay.
back to like, how did you start? So you're a tennis player, right? Tennis
I'm a
background. How
tennis
did you
player.
start
Yes.
playing pickleball? And do your tennis people still talk to you?
Well, so I came from very high level junior tennis. The goal was to play professional tennis. I was ranked top 10 in the nation as juniors. Um, I would say probably around the age of 12 or 13 is kind of when I found out I didn't have a lot of cartilage in my joints. So it was kind of a genetic thing. I never broke any bones as a kid, so I just didn't find out until much later when I actually started playing tennis more seriously, and then my body started hurting. So the symptoms are very similar to arthritis. And what happened when I started playing a lot of tennis, um, at a high level, junior, kind of playing nationals and things like that, was my service motion. I would kind of go through it and randomly I would pinch a nerve in my shoulder, and then it would just lock up for like a few weeks at a time. And there was no way of really fixing it, because it's either you do surgery and it works and you might be able to still play, or you do surgery and then you're kind of just done. So it was one of those things where I was like, okay, well, maybe I can just do physical therapy and train and kind of just manage and see how far I can take this. And that was a decision I made kind of like at 12, 13. So I was still pretty young. I played for quite a, quite a few years playing junior tennis. Tried playing pros for a year or so, probably around 18, 19. And then that's kind of when it just got too much. Like the nerve would just keep pinching. There was no kind of rhyme or reason to when it was going to happen. And then I think mentally and emotionally for me, I just called it. I just had to pull the plug on that because I was like, I can't keep doing this if I'm going to be out like, you know, a few weeks at a time. So that's kind of when I quit tennis, uh, playing competitively. So then I'm from North Carolina. So I was kind of in North Carolina at the time. When I was playing junior tennis, I was in Florida at the tennis academies at Everett Tennis Academy, Macy. So I had moved back to North Carolina when I decided to quit tennis. And then at that point, I think I needed like a mental and an emotional reset. It was really tough for me because I had spent my whole kind of like youth just wanting to be a professional tennis player. So I think I needed a mental reset. So I decided to move myself all the way to California, where there was great weather all the time. I hate cold weather. I'm struggling a little bit right now in North Carolina, so I'm home for the holidays. It's actually not that bad, but
All
I'm
the
a wimp when it comes to cold weather. It really is not that bad. But
Yeah, I didn't want to say that, but all the Northerners are
it's
like
no.
freezing.
I'm the first to admit
What is it, 44?
yeah, yeah, it's not bad. It's not snowing, but for me personally, anything below like 65, I'm like, this is too
I
cold.
gotta shut
This
it
is too
down.
cold. So I moved out to California, kind of the LA area. Went to school at UCLA. Just did school, did not play tennis because I couldn't physically. And then while I was out there, I started teaching tennis at the Riviera Country Club, which is it's a really nice, one of the nicest clubs in kind of the LA Pacific Palisades area. At the time, they wanted a female coach kind of to work with their high level junior players. So I decided to do that kind of to stay active a little bit because at the time, even though I had quit tennis because of the lack of cartilage that I had, it was one of those kind of things where it's like, it's very similar to arthritis where it's like, you can't not be active because then everything stiffens up and it's more painful.
Mm.
So you still have to find a way to kind of like move around and be active. So teaching tennis was kind of my initial answer to that. So I started working with kids, did that for a very long time. Absolutely loved it. I love working with kids. It was so much fun just, interacting with them and, teaching them tennis and, being active in that way. And then, I would say probably I was playing a little bit I had some tennis buddies that I had become friends with, that we would play like live ball, which is kind of like a king of the court. And that was kind of no serve. So again, it was my way of kind of, hanging out with my friends, being active and not having to serve. And then in LA by the Venice Beach area, there's this sport called paddle tennis. So it's not padel, which has the glass, and it's not pickleball. It was kind of very similar to pickleball, small court, the net's a little lower. You have kind of like a padel like paddle where it's very thick and foamy, but you have this punctured tennis ball. So I started doing that for a few years. And then randomly, this guy came up to me at the end of I would say end of 2018. And he was like, hey, there's this sport called pickleball that you should really try. It's very similar to paddle tennis. There's no overhead serve. And they don't have, at the time, there wasn't a lot of professional tournaments. There was only a few tournaments, but he's like, I think you'd be really good. It's a lot of fun. I think, it's something that you can do and there's potential for growth. That was the thing. It's like, and I guess in his mind at the time, he felt like paddle tennis wasn't really going to go anywhere, but he thought pickleball had more potential. So he's like, give it a shot. I would say the first day I stepped out on the court, I was very confused. I didn't understand anything. I didn't understand the scoring. I didn't understand. And it's funny because like I'm one of those where I need to understand. Like for me to have fun, I have to understand what I'm doing. Like even if I lose, as long as I understand, I can enjoy it and have fun. I did not understand at all. I was so confused. So the first day was a little bit of a mess for me. So I walked away very frustrated, but I think that's actually what made me come back to it because I enjoyed the challenge of, okay, I got to figure this out. Like this is doable. Like it's not hard. I just have to like lock in and figure it out. So after about a couple days, I think I finally got the hang of the scoring, kind of got the hang of stacking. I started watching some videos, watching points, how they were played. And then I went out a few more times and then I immediately became hooked. Immediate. It was from day one to I would say about day 3 or day 4. I was like, okay, I'm going to play. I'm going to go get myself some paddles. I'm going to start drilling like 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. And I was just hooked. So it was a very quick transition for me. And what's funny is my tennis buddies were very supportive of it. The paddle tennis players, not so
Oh,
much.
really?
Because I think, yeah, they were a little bit more upset because in their mind, I guess I feel like paddle tennis was probably also trying to compete into being that next upcoming sport. And me leaving it, they were like, oh, you know, you traitor. And they were very upset about it. And now a lot of them actually do play
Of
pickleball
course
because
they
paddle
do.
tennis just never went anywhere. Um, but yeah, no, I think it was one of those things where I think what drew me to pickleball was not only was it like really easy to learn, it was really easy on my body. Like that was a big thing for me. Again, there's no overhead serve, so I didn't have to worry about that part. And the my lack of cartilage, you know, I'm always in kind of a constant state of pain, and that's never going to go away because it's just kind of bone on bone. It's very similar to arthritis. But pickleball was like a good activity that I could do that kept the joints lubricated, and it was just like this kind of happy medium that I found as a sport. It wasn't as tough on the body as tennis, but it was still allowed me to be active and it was fun. And then I think the biggest thing also was that it's kind of like it's chess. Like that's what I picked up very quickly with pickleball, that it's chess. There's a lot of layers. It's always evolving. You know, it's not, you know, this one thing. It's like every person has their strengths and weaknesses, you know, and there's so many different things to it that make it exciting and make it new and fresh every time you step on the court. So I think the strategy is kind of what drew me in and kept me playing. But yeah, like I think that's kind of that was kind of how I got into pickleball. It was kind of end of 2018 was when I first heard about it, and then beginning of 2019 is when I fully committed to playing like my first pickleball tournament. I kind of rated myself at a 4.5, and you know that's kind of how I started. What's funny is when I initially started, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a 4.5, and I'm gonna stay at a 4.550 maybe for about a year, and then I'm gonna try pros, and that just did not happen at all. That is not how that story went. I went from being a 4.5 at the beginning of 2019 to a few months into it, play like 2 months or 3 months into it, playing US Open pros. And then a few months later, Ben John's asking me to play TOC, which was another major at the time. Like it went so much faster than what I had mentally prepared myself for.
That's
But yeah,
That's pretty cool, though. I mean, that's kind of a testament to your athleticism, because I think everybody can pick up pickleball and kind of instantly, if you're a good athlete and you have racket sports history, you can get to it. You know, you can be here when you
right,
start, but that doesn't mean you're going to excel. Because
right.
I think a lot of tennis players, racquetball players, squash, table tennis, whatever sport you came from, you always kind of see
You see
their
the end
instincts
game.
kick in, and
Yeah,
it's hard
yeah,
for the true athletes can break them and get
right.
into the new sport, but a lot of us kind of have to, or we get left behind because we can't break the instincts.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think for me when I first started, I had a good group of people around me kind of tell me, "Hey Jesse, you're never going to lose your tennis instincts or your tennis background when it comes to pickleball. You're not going to lose that. You're always going to be able to hit it hard. You're always going to be able to have that swing. So learn pickleball. Figure out how the soft shots, the dinking, the resets, the drop, figure out all of those things and start with that first. And then you can always bring the other stuff back in there." And I think for me, that really helped me kind of have an all round pickleball game because I think that stuff is important to have, especially like if the hard stuff isn't working. Like just having that to fall back on. And it's just like, you know, the more options you have when it comes to game styles, the better it is. So I think I had a good group of people kind of give me, you know, the right advice of, okay, just learn pickleball because tennis isn't going to go away. You know, you'll always have those instincts. Just learn pickleball, figure that out, and then you can kind of add everything else in there later on. I think also for me, I watched a lot of video when I first
Hmm.
started. So, you know, I watched the top players at the time, you know, you had Simone, you had Collegiate, you had Lucy, Matt, like you had all of like Arina Tereshchenko. These were the top players at the time. And I just watched so many videos of them playing and the strategy of how they would win points. So I think that also helped me. Um, But yeah, I think it is really tough to kind of break, especially when you've been playing a sport for so long. Like I played tennis for over 10 years. So to break those habits is very tough. So you mentally have to go at it like it's not your sport. Like, when I step out, if I go and play padel, I'm not automatically, or if I go play racquetball or squash, I'm not thinking this is tennis. I do kind of think, okay, this is a completely different sport and I have to figure out what I'm supposed to do here. And I think it's hard for people that come from other sports to play pickleball because it is so much easier just to kind of pick up and learn that you just naturally want to add your own sport into pickleball, which is
Yep.
fine. It's just that if you are trying to kind of have this complete all round game, you do mentally kind of have to separate, well, this isn't tennis. This is pickleball. Let me figure out and understand how pickleball works. And then I can add that stuff in later.
Yeah, that's great advice though, because I love that. Like you're not, if you've played tennis you've played it since you were a little kid, that's
Right.
ingrained in your DNA. It ain't
Yeah.
changed. It's kind of like riding a
No.
bike. Like you could go play
Yes.
tennis right now. No, you're going to be the same level. No, but you could be 80 years old and you will
Right.
be able to rally in tennis.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
you don't
That
need to,
muscle memory stays around for a while.
it sure does. Like along as long as we'll be around here, but
Yes.
you don't want to. So keep your roots. That's fine. If
Yeah.
you're whatever you came from, there's benefit to whatever racket sport you played. There's its own personal benefits into pickleball.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
you said it, like you got to learn. Those won't go away, but you got to learn pickleball because if you come on playing tennis or racquetball or squash or table
Right.
tennis on a pickleball court, you're going to get left behind.
Right.
So use those to your advantage
Yeah,
and learn
exactly.
the sport that you're now in.
Yeah, I think it's just the more options you have, I think the better it just becomes. So it's like if you can bring kind of like table tennis shots, if you can bring racquetball shots, like if you can bring all these different things to pickleball, I think overall you will become a better pickleball player
Sure.
because there's just so many options and variety that can be had in pickleball. So it's not a one dimensional sport. Like you can definitely, I've seen some shots from table tennis players where I'm like, oh, that was interesting. I like that. Let me see if I can figure out how to do that one. That was cool. So it's like, it's not, like pickleball isn't a black and white sport. It's such a gray area sport where anything and everything can work. I tell people that all the time. People will be like, hey, so Jesse, should I do this or should I do that? And I'm like, honestly, you do it until it doesn't work twice. As soon as it doesn't work twice, cut it out because it means your opponent's read the play and they know what's coming. So do something different. But I tell everybody, do whatever you want until it's not working like 2 or 3 times, and then just do something different. There's no wrong answer. There really isn't. There is no wrong. If it's working, there's no wrong answer. It's just, you're playing, pickleball is a very quick game. It's 2 out of 3 till 11. So I always just tell people strategically, do whatever it is you like to do. And if you notice it stops working twice, then do something different.
Yeah, and you can go back to it, right? Like you
Right,
can. There's no
exactly.
reason you have to like shut it down for good. You can,
Right.
if you're cutting your dinks and they're not working, right? You don't have to like abandon them forever and
Right.
go to a top spin dink for the rest of the game. But it's good to break it up and change
Yes.
the routine a little bit.
Yes, exactly.
So man, are you bummed at all? Like I always think back to this, like with the new NIL stuff, like you could have played for the UCLA's pickleball
Oh,
team. Like,
right, right, right.
would you have wanted to play like D1 pickle? How cool is that? Like, it's coming, right? It
It
hasn't
is
happened
coming.
yet,
Yeah,
but it is
yeah, yeah.
coming.
So actually at the PPA Nationals in Dallas, they had the Duper Collegiate event there. And I actually watched a lot of the matches. And it was so fun just seeing it at the collegiate level. Because they did it in like an MLP format. So they did very
Right.
similar. They had, your men's doubles, women's doubles mix. You had this team dynamic. And they brought so much energy and fire. It was just so fun to see like these college kids getting that into pickleball.
That's
So I feel like, yeah, that would have been cool if we had pickleball kind of like, especially when I first started kind of in 2019, if we had it in colleges. But even like for me at 2019, it was barely a professional sport. Like it's come so far in such a short time because in
crazy.
2019, there was 3 majors. You had US Open, you had Nationals, and you had TOC. And then you had maybe two or three other big tournaments with a little bit of prize money, but it's just come so much further now than it was in 2019. So to even see it now in colleges where you do have these collegiate teams kind of competing, and it's not just competing, like they're into it. Like what's funny is at the Duper Collegiate event in Dallas, I actually ran into a girl because I used to teach um, high school varsity tennis at Harvard Westlake, which is a school in LA, and I did that for quite some time. And there was a girl that was on our tennis team that was now on the collegiate pickleball team.
That's
So
awesome.
it was really cool. And what's funny is the last couple of years I was doing the high school tennis team. I was the assistant coach. I had just started I was playing pickleball and I started traveling more, which is why I had to kind of cut back on the high school tennis. Um, and the girls kind of started realizing that I was playing pickleball and I was doing it professionally, and they started following me. So, to see her like years later and now she's actually on a college pickleball team, it was really cool. She's like, "Oh my God, Jessie, I get it now. I understand why you like liked it so much and you were just having it's so much fun and it's such a
I
good
take back
time."
all the things that I said
Yeah,
about you that you didn't know.
exactly.
That's
Yeah,
so
but
cool though.
it's so much, it's so cool to just see it at the college level. And I think when, like, I've had people ask me before, like, "Hey, how do we get kids playing pickleball?" And even when I was at Harvard Westlake with the high school teams, I would kind of try to get them to, because we would have 40 girls try out for the team. And we could only take 15 to 20 girls just because, the team can't be that big. But the other 20 girls were really good at tennis.
Right.
And it was just like, we can't take everyone. So I would always go to like Harvard West. I'm like, "Hey, we should really try to create a pickleball team. It would be so much fun. These girls would be really good at it. They'd be on a team." And the problem was it wasn't in college at the time. So, and it's a fair point because the parents are like, "Well, why would I have my kid play on a high school pickleball team when it's not in college?" Like they didn't see it necessarily as a waste of time, but without saying it, that's kind of how they saw it. They're like, "I'm wasting my time and my money, and it doesn't get them into college," which is a fair point. Like
Sure.
that makes sense, sure. So I think it needs to start from colleges, and it has to work its way down, because for parents and for kids in high school and middle school, it's like, "Well, why am I putting in this time and work if it's not in college?" Because the education is important, and I get that. So I'm really happy to see that it's now in colleges, because I think once it's in colleges and they start taking it more seriously and it becomes a real thing, then high schools will start creating teams, and then middle schools will start creating teams. And then, you're going to just see a lot more kids playing pickleball, which I think ultimately that is the only way any sport actually really grows. Like, I think for a long time, I think the adults loved having their own little thing. Let's be honest. I think the idea of kids not being really interested in pickleball, I think a lot of adults enjoy it. They're like, "Oh, this is my thing." The kids can go do something else and I get to go play pickleball with my friends. So I think the adults liked having it for themselves. But ultimately, I think, for the sport to really grow to the next level and get there, I think the kids have to start playing.
What? Yeah, 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head too with start it in college because
Yeah.
the point that you made there, I think a lot of people have thought about in the smaller sports, but I don't
Right.
know in the masses if people have thought about it is you can invest. I mean, any sport is expensive, especially if you want your kid to take it seriously. You're probably doing private lessons. The equipment is
Right.
not cheap. You're traveling, tournaments, hotel cost, airfare, whatever it is. If all of that is for nothing, I don't want to say that. That's not the right thing to say. But if you don't see that there's the next level for
Yes.
this kid to do, whether that be college or a professional tour, a lot of people won't get them into that. There's
Right.
just no,
Exactly.
and they're going to see it as kind of a dead end, which is sad, but it is what it is. That's where we live in, right? If you can save
Yes.
for your kid $100,000 by getting him a scholarship to play pickleball in college, you're certainly going to do that over
Oh,
getting him
absolutely.
into a sport that doesn't have any NCAA program.
Right. Right.
So I think
Yeah.
that's for growth that college needs to continue to build out, and I can't wait. That's gonna be so
Oh,
much
yeah.
freaking fun, like
Oh,
March
yeah.
Madness at college. But
Oh,
it's kind of
yeah.
like, and I love it, and I love what they did with. I've said this on every one of them. I know you probably haven't listened to them, but I'm sound like a broken record. I love the MLP. I just think it's so cool because tennis is an individual sport. Table tennis is an individual.
Right.
I know you play doubles, kind of, but it's still, I still can kind of consider that an individual sport. Racquetball is the same way. You play
Yeah.
singles and doubles, and you have one teammate. But now with the MLP, like you have one teammate now, and then you got however many on the bench. But then now it's going to start cutting into like I'm from Chicago. It's like I'm going to start, like
Right.
naturally.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna start if there's teams playing, that's what I'm gonna probably root for to just
Right.
start out of the gate. So I
Yeah.
like the college has done like
Oh
they've
yeah, no, the energy that Duper Collegiate event had in Dallas, it was electrifying. Like they were getting so hyped and pumped.
that's so
And
cool.
it was just fun to see it because it's like and the best part about it, like as 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 much energy as they had and as much as they were yelling and getting pumped, everybody out there was just having a good time. They were still
So
like, "Oh my
cool.
god, that was a great shot. You played so." Like literally after the match would be over, like they would just come together and they would just start talking, just having casual
I could
conversations,
never
and
do that.
like
How do they do that?
they were just out there, like they would compete hard, and then they were just like, "Yeah, that was so much fun. This is so great to be out here.
That's
I'm
so
having
cool.
the best time."
That is so cool. That's like the pickleball ambassador 101 that I could
Yeah.
never do, but like that's it's not to sound like super cheesy or cliche, but like that's pickleball, right?
No,
Like
yeah,
battle
exactly.
on the court and then off like it's just you just leave happier even if you
Right.
lost.
Right, exactly.
It's pretty
Yeah.
amazing. Well,
Yeah.
I know I've taken up a lot of your time, but I do want to talk about what you have coming up. So we got a big year, 2025. It's going to be the biggest year in pickleball ever.
I know.
Half the things that are happening, more than half, 99% of the things that are in the works, we don't even know about yet. You probably know
Right,
more than I
right.
do, but like things are coming. What is your plan for this next year? Do you have any goals? What's 2025 look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I think, as each year it gets more competitive, more players are playing, the competition gets tougher. So I think for me, a goal that I always have is, if I can still continue to be a top player, it's a really good goal. I'm not out there trying to win every single tournament, win every single match, because that's just not realistic. Do I step on the court and I give my best? Yes. But if I can just continue to be competitive, continue to like go out there, give it my best, play good pickleball, and still have fun, that's a really big goal for me. Being injury free as much as possible, another huge goal for me. I think that's probably something I focus on more than anything else, is just kind of like preventative stuff and like just being injury free, because ultimately, if I can stay injury free, then I can play pickleball. So that's another big one for me. It's a lot of kind of off court training, physical therapists, things like that, where it's like, hey, what do I need to do to prevent injury? I've always kind of been a firm believer of prevention is better than the cure. So I will always look to do things to prevent the injury before it happens. So that's another goal for me, is just, can I stay injury free? Um, yeah, I think it's gonna be a packed year. It's gonna be a long season. This last season, ended. I think I remember at the end of 2023. Someone asked me about my goals, and I think it was very similar. Kind of like I had just come off of, actually, at the end of 2023, I had a tear in my elbow, and I thought it was tennis elbow, and I didn't realize it was a tear. So I
Ooh,
got PRP done. Took kind of that Christmas season off to recover. The first half of 2024 was spent kind of rebuilding. Even though I was playing, it was kind of more of rebuilding that elbow, getting it back to its strength. And then the second half of 2024, I think ended up being better than I really expected. I got to three finals, which again, better than I was ever expecting, especially with how much the competition has grown
sure.
and how good the players are, and just how hard it is just to even do well in tournaments. So I got to two finals with Gabe Tardio mix. We won a gold and we got a silver. And then I got to a women's final with Tina Pisnik. So yeah, like, the second half of 2024 was a really good year for me. Something that I'm super proud of. And I think I ended really strong for 2024. So I think for 2025, just kind of play good pickleball, compete hard, um, and just have fun. Like it's a long season, and you sometimes forget when you kind of get caught up in the moment of trying to win and trying to be super competitive. And, yes, we're professional athletes, but I think if you're not having fun, it's much harder to do all those things. So I always, have to remind myself, hey, Jessie, like, just keep having fun, keep enjoying it, find ways to keep having fun and enjoying it. And just, understand that being able to play professional pickleball is still a dream come true. And this is something that I don't think a lot of people even thought would happen. So enjoy the ride, because it's gonna be a good one for 2025. That is for sure. There's a lot in the schedule. There's gonna be some more international events coming up. I think it's cool to see them grow the sport internationally. So I think we'll be traveling a lot more around the world, which will be really fun. And I imagine there's going to be more players coming from more sports that will make it even more entertaining. And I think the sport's going to keep evolving. So the chess match is just going to get tougher, which will be fun to kind of try to analyze and break down. But yeah, just, kind of play good pickleball, compete hard, stay injury free, and have fun. Kind of bullet points for 2025.
So fun, travel,
Yeah.
compete, good pickleball.
Yeah. I know.
Injury free.
Injury free. Like, yeah. Like, how can you complain? Like, it just sounds too good to be true, but it is.
For you, it's not true for me. I have to go to work every day.
Yeah.
Well, whatever happens in 2025, we are going to be watching, Jessie. We absolutely love watching you play. We can't wait to see what your 2025 holds. But we know it's going to be full of success. All the things that you mentioned on your list are going to happen for you. I can't wait to see what happens just in general. Like, it's going to be so crazy, but we wish you the best. Thank you so much for your time today. And let's do this
thank
again
you for
sometime
having
soon.
me. Yeah. Hopefully it wasn't too long. I know I started realizing, like, as I was answering, I'm like, oh, Jessie, this is a long answer, Jessie.
The people want to hear. They'd rather hear more of Jessie Irvine than less. That's a good thing.
Yeah, but no, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jessie. Good luck to you.
Thank you.